So again, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for our next Practice Partner Luncheon session. I'm going to go over our typical housekeeping notes, and then I'm going to turn the presentation over to Susie to get us started. As usual, the recording will be made available to participants after the event. So you're going to receive an email from me. It'll have a link to the recording as well as a download link for the slides that we're going to be viewing today. Remember that you share that with your coworkers that couldn't join us for the live sessions, or if you need to use it as a reference tool, it'll be available for you as well. We are in listen-only mode, so if you do have a question, please use the Q&A tab or the chat tab. Both of those will come over to me, and we will reply to questions as we can throughout the session. If not, we will hold them to the end, and time permitting, we will answer them at that point. If we do not have time at the end of the presentation to get to your questions, we will make sure that we follow up with you offline and get those answers to you. So that does it in terms of housekeeping notes. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to turn it over to Susie to get us started because we have a lot to cover today as usual. So Susie?
Thank you. Hi everybody, thanks for joining. Go ahead and get on this. Our plug on the EMDs Engage is a new online training package that you can purchase. Information will be coming on there, adding to it different information on that. So if it's something that you're interested in, go talk to your account managers to get signed up for that to move forward. On the agenda, we're going to talk about updates through recent patches, some patches coming out to it. I want to do a little bit of a recap on the CCDA data information coming out, and the purpose for that is, again, as we start moving towards the UpDocs patient portal and the pushing of CCDA data, it's to understand what kind of data is going out there and what patients will see, and thoughts as to what's inside your system and outputting as well. I just want to do a short little conversation about last quarter, which is now, and your meaningful use or MIPS reporting. What is it you want to call it these days? You just kind of recap on your reporting, and then there's a couple links in there just to know the time is nearing. I finish off with new functionality with Elena, who's going to give us some workflow and demonstration on our price. So it says I've just put some links in here. Of course, we release them as ongoing, and they're on the documentation support site information that pulls onto it. So I highly recommend that when patches are released, that you do go in and look at that and look at what kind of changes are coming onto this and what you can expect, because as we start moving towards adding more features and more functionality to Practice Partner, Medisoft, Lytec, and Lytec, a lot of patch release information will be coming out, so it's important to just really stay on top of that and know what it is that is coming on, as well as we're moving towards this new functionality, knowing about getting your patches and being up to date on that information as well. The thing I just want to talk about, which is high regards, is the patch we released on the 8th, is the fact that the Change Healthcare APIs and the web services, the URLs that we've been using in Practice Partner with Practice Partner Medical Billing, use basically to send out your claims and generate that file up to what was Relay Health is now Change Healthcare, and the LD checking. Those have changed, and so this patch we released on Monday is very important to be installed, and you need to get this done prior to October 25th, because this is what is going to affect the output for your billing claims and eligibility checking to continue functioning. So that patch released, and it's just important to understand the importance of it, as well as along with bringing yourself up to other patches that need to be done. When we set the EMD support notification, just like what you're seeing on here, these go out right in with this Change Healthcare. These were going out on a regular basis. So I kind of want to stress the fact that when these things come out in your inbox, pay attention to them, information that pulls on, because it's very important to understand that information and knowing forward. Now with this particular patch, more or less what it's telling us right now is that you have to have your system up to with the .NET point is a minimum in order for it to work. If not, you're going to have problems going on that, so that you don't have when you start to get out your claims information that pulls onto it. This is going to have to be on all your workstations as well as your server. So I've broken it down, information for you. So basically, if you're using Practice Partner Medical Billing, it's kind of out of mind. It doesn't affect Medisoft or Lytec, but this is released, and you must have it up, installed, as well as any other patches by October 25th, because this is going to affect your claims and eligibility checking to continue. Prior to installing the patch, you must ensure that you have Net 4.5 minimum installed on both the client and the server. And after installing the server patch, make sure you reboot that server. When medical billing for the first time on any client after installing the client patch, you must be an admin user, information that pulls on. So just kind of keep that in mind. After that patch, you may want to go ahead and open up medical billing admin and have the right as an admin user to be able to make sure that everything's coming up on that. And you want to also reboot your client machines at your earliest convenience after you close the medical billing application. So open the admin user and then want to reboot that after. It's a .NET check on client and client in the mbwin.exe file, and it's not going to allow you to log in if the workstation doesn't have the 4 or 5 minimum installed on that client. So just understand that if it isn't, then when you try to get into medical billing, it's going to go ahead and give you the following error that you're seeing right here. If the has not been patched correctly when Change Healthcare deactivates the old URL and API, you'll receive this error that's showing right in here, the ECS error in the claim server log, information that pulls onto it. So it's going to tell you that it's not there. So understand that if that happens, then that's the it hasn't been patched correctly, information that pulls on. So you may have to, if that is the case, then you'll have to contact support to get that updated information that goes on to it. So a good time to be able to think about that and getting it updated. All right, I want to kind of move through some other updates and fixes, information that you may or may not be aware of. A lot of times we fixes, and if you're not really paying much attention to it, you may do the patch, but not know if it has any effect on you. This first one, basically, we updated the rule file for the Pneumovac 65 and plus text. So it was something that you were not using any longer because it wasn't calculating the correctly with a 70-year-old patient. It's been fixed, and you can go ahead and reinstall it back into your, utilize that into your templates information pulls through information that comes through. So that patch was released, and so that's been updated. Also with portal messages, on the batch communication for you, we actually went in and fixed it now that it's going to be recognized in UpDocs as well. So as you move into UpDocs, you will have the ability to go ahead and use the batch communication as you did in WebView to be able to send portal messages and so forth, information on that. So it's available there to be able to be fixed. We also had a few of UpDocs beta updates, and just kind of a shout out to our beta sites who've been in UpDocs and working through that. That is a result of a lot of information coming back. I'm not going to go through each and every one of these, but a lot of fixes that have gone through, and we've been updating that so that it's going to make it easier on the general public when we start populating with UpDocs that comes onto it. So there was quite a few changes in the patch at the end of September that we added so that you can, when it goes there, you'll have a lot of different information that's changed on it. Release an interface update, which basically is going to bring over your authenticity into Practice Partner if you're not using a medical billing license, information that comes onto it. So that's been fixed. Also, clinical encounters, we fixed the where it basically is going to give you a consistent outbound display information regardless of the number of encounters, because that it was not consistent of popping up and giving us that outbound error on that if there was a lot of clinical encounters into the clinical encounter list. So then updated. Another problem diagnosis, when you inserted a problem from the problem diagnosis inside of the note, and you insert the problems, it defaulted to diagnosis, you changed it to major problem, you bring in one major problem, and then if you needed to add another diagnosis from that icon and then to launch the HLI, it would automatically go back to diagnosis. So you had to turn around if you wanted to move it into a different tab of the problem list, which now that's been fixed where once you use during that counter of usage, if you choose major problem, then the next button that's going to come up is going to stay consistent with being major problem. Also, you can always change it, but it's going to be consistent to reading what the first time and the first set that you used to how you want to insert those problems onto your note. In the lab names, it's no longer going to practice partner to close unexpectedly if you have a lab name that's longer than 20 characters. If you had a very long log name information when you opened up the most recent lab data, they go ahead and freeze up and close practice partner out, so that's been fixed. Added the ability to add the full title, which now displays on the progress note. So if you have a provider with multiple characters in, like I'm showing here in this demonstration, when they sign on the progress note, all of that information that's in the title setting at the provider maintenance level will go ahead and populate right into the note information without truncating that information out. When you change the weight from metric to English, the weight now converts properly. Import-export, there's been some changes, different information on the having error information that pulls on. So I see different areas here that have changed. Also with the 2.1 format, which is the CCDA option that you can change into the Records 9 tab in special features, display whether immunization has been refused. Previously, it didn't do that information that's there, so now it's updated. The kind of, like I said earlier, is to talk about CCD understanding. Again, as we go towards, this is the last quarter, you may be reporting the last quarter, you may report earlier information that pulls through, but the transfer of care, summary of care, creates the CCDA and it's going out via direct message. Also, when you get to the updoc of the what patient portal, you will be sending out CCDAs patient portal versus what we're used to in WebView, and need more data that it wasn't in the form of a CCDA. So it's just kind of, wanted to just kind of recap on the information, pulling out that, so you may or may not understand, you've already been working on that or not. But again, this information, we're getting to the point where you're taking information out of your system and you're making it viewable to other outside sources beyond that. So it's just kind of important to understand what's in the CCDA and where that information is pulling from. So when you go to export a medical summary and it pulls onto it, the one thing in the regards of meaningful use, at the very top there's a stating information that says, if you check any of these default check boxes, it's going to give you credit on your metric report. Just make sure that when you're going out to send that, if you're unchecking these boxes, that's why you may not have that measure on your nominator on your summary of care. They're defaulted, they're required that they go out to it. If there's no information inside of your database, it's to say there's no information there. But by unchecking it, it could be causing your numbers not to be correct on that information as well, because they are required to that. You also have the ability to go in and if you need to modify something, check the little cross box and then other information will pull down. And if you wanted to remove some information within it, it's not going to take away your on that PMSI metric. So make sure that when happening that you're not removing any of these boxes, because if you are, that's what's going to be numbers off. So it's important to understand that when you move through it. On the CCA data, so as information is exported out of your system and into the form of a CCDA, there's different areas where that information be filled in. So you've got your provider information, which is patient demographics, usual provider as well. So it's going to pull from your patient demographics provider tab. Information pulls into it. You've got your patient information. Obviously, it's just going to be the main demographics coming into it. There's information that pulls in, which pulls from that encounter type that's been generated, and insurance information that's going to pull on that CCDA is going to pull from your billing order tab in Practice Partner. So if I'm using Total Practice Partner, my billing tab, the tab is going to have the primary and secondary, if there is information, pull into that billing tab. If in an interface, it's going to be that information that's pulling to the billing order tab from your practice management system. If you're not using a practice management system at all and you're not adding information into patient records, the field is going to be blank that comes on. But what I want you to keep in mind is in your transfers of care, if I'm going to send somebody, if I'm going to send a transfer of care from my office to another office in the form of a transfer of care, the insurance might be an important thing. That way they can see that information and be able to pull to it as you hear, as well as even obtain a policy number information that goes on. So it could be useful to the other side that is reading that transfer of care or streamline that information down. If entering that in, but you're keeping up with it, keep in mind that it's going to be going out on those transfers of care or a CDA that could be sending over to the patient portal at 1.2. So it's just important to keep in mind that what data is in there, it's important of how it's getting out of there as well. Immunizations tab, it's going to go ahead. If I've got immunizations entered into health maintenance, my immunizations are going to pull into the CCDA. If you're somebody that's not doing immunizations, then would be no data there. Information that pulls through, or it could be showing there as being done elsewhere, something that pulls onto it. So the immunizations, what's in the health maintenance is going to pull in the category. With your medication histories, it's going to bring in all your medications, your current and your historical, and the purpose of that is, again, all the medications this patient's been on. The tab that depends on how it's been used and maybe managed, there may be a lot of information in there that hopefully is what it should be, information that comes through, but it's sending out CCDAs and the medication history, a lot of stuff in there that just doesn't seem like it should be. That's something to kind of think about that, because again, it's being output information and it's going to grab all those medications. The purpose of that is to document in the EHR all the medications this patient's been on, if it's been discontinued and so forth, the information pulled through. Medications administered, this would go ahead and count towards the medications that were done in that encounter, information that pulls on. So if none were administered during that visit, it's going to say none. But if you wrote medication information from that or did refills, it's going to go ahead and show into the administered for that date. Again, this is, again, your problem list. And it's going to bring in problems, information that pulls through. If there's a lot of problems in there, they're going to be shown in there. If the problems list needs some cleaning up, that might be something that you think about doing. Again, as we move towards stage 3, the requirement for a problem reconciliation is going to be there, data reconciliation. So as getting those problem lists, not a lot of stuff in that, because again, that information will be pulling over information into the CCDA. So just information that pulls through. The same with your allergies and adverse reactions. That's going to go ahead and pull from your allergy window. Vital signs from your vitals. The plan pulls from your care plan element. So you'd be using the care plan in Practice Partner or Medisoft or Lytec to be able to pull into the treatment plan the information that comes through. So there again, think about a CCDA going out to, at the UpDocs level, to the patient. May not have been using the care plan at some point, but it now might be a time to think about it, because information is going to be pulling out, and then the patient would receive that data on that information as well. So it's going to go ahead and document. As said in the other Lunch and Learns, there's dot codes, there's letter codes, and there's ways of workflow to manage the care plans. And that's something that to utilize it, you'd really kind of want to work on that so that you don't have a ton of treatment plans in there with old dates and information. You need to keep more current information. It does need to be maintained, as all data does. Same with your pull-in procedures from the past, information that pulls on. So there again, kind of look at that and see information that you have on that, because it will be pulling in to a CCDA. Your lab, everything will come in from if you're using structured lab tables and your lab results will come in, that's going to show up into that CCDA information. This is going to pull from your order if using that entry to send out referral information that pulls onto it and bring that information into it. If not using the order entry module to send out referrals, then again, it's not going to have anything into it. So that's one thing to kind of think about, like your transfers of care and sending patients to other information, utilizing that workflow in there to be able to add that information so that if other offices get that reason for referral, it's pulling from the order setup. Assessment information pulls from the assessment section of the treatment plan under your show button in the chart. So we've added extra functionality in there, information that pulls on. So it may not be widely used at this point, but that is where the assessment area pulls from inside of that section there. Your encounters is going to be from the encounters window. Encounters have been entered in. Your history pulls from your smoking status that's documented in vitals window. So really what shows up into the social is the smoking status information. And then your functional status and your advanced directives. And both of these from data that is entered into the clinical element templates, one called advanced directives and the other one's functional status. So entering information in those, this is where that information is going to go ahead and feed into the CCDA. The implants, if it's something you're documenting, would pull the implantable device window that's found under the tasks when you're in the chart, information that pulls on. And the very end is the mental status. And so it's going to be a full mental information. All that really pulls onto that is the cognitive difficulty, which is also documented. It's a clinical element that's documented in the functional status template. So that's what would put into that information, and it's really looking at the cognitive difficulty clinical element that's pulled to there. Information that pulls into it. Again, some of us have been sending CCDAs for some time, information that comes in, but now we're taking another step, and once we go to UpDocs, the CCDAs will be sent over with notes as task, and it's going to be sent over to the patients. It goes on, and it ties into a lot of different functionalities, but that's what patients access to their medical record and medical information that comes into the patient portal, and working to engagement in there. So it's just a kind of get to start thinking about as you start moving towards that, as to certain things that may need a little bit of work or may not, or you may feel pretty good about it. But it will be the future. So wanted to kind of talk about again the last quarter. We're past October 1st, so it's down to the wire. So you've got your MIPS reporting for 2018. I put a link on there for your resource information that comes through that in there, and your scoring guide and so forth. And also the Medicaid is also a link if you're reporting Medicaid information that's there. It's kind of important to understand where it is, and if you're going to be reporting this last quarter for your objectives, information that comes in, and to where you're at that. I would also always advise is to make sure you have your little audit file all loaded and ready to roll there, as to no matter what, if you're going to report earlier in the year, you can do that. It's information that comes on, just make sure you have everything, all your ducks in a row, and your prints and everything rolling and into your file. Back and do that after the fact, and that way that you've got set up your security risk assessment, make sure that's all ready to roll, or you've gotten it done, and then you've got it documented. So with report, I just wanted to again talk about the PMSI metric report for the AI transition 2018. We are currently on the 2014 certification, so this is the report you would run if you're going to run the MIPS, if you're reporting for MIPS information that is going through. With Medicaid, it would be the stage 2 reporting 2015 plus information that comes onto it. So again, your PMSI metric report has a lot of different options in the drop down to run in there, but it's just a breakdown of what you're running. The AI report at the bottom of this list would be the measures and objectives that you would report on if it's 2015 certification. You have the option to run that. But down to the last quarter, you may be testing to the 2014 certification. So just to kind of understand which reports you're going to be able to run and what information that you want to be able to do. But I would, again, if this is the quarter you're going to report on, make sure that you're running those reports, saving them, and really monitoring it prior to the end of the year, so that you don't get to the end of the year and have to do some backstrokes to try to be able to get attestation on that. So you must make sure that you're kind of on top of it and ready to report when the end of the year comes around. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Alina, and she's going to give you a live demo as to RX Enterprise. Thanks.
Okay, I have control of the screen now. Here you go. You're double muted. We don't hear you on this end right now.
Can you now?
Yes, there you are.
Great. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us, and thanks, Susie, for all those great updates. I did want to go over a few things in our upcoming enterprise release and go over a couple of general changes to be aware of. These are things that we will be going over multiple times in multiple lunch and learn sessions, so don't worry if you don't catch all the details. We'll be going over these quite a bit before the end of the year and as well as next year. We want to just, as a disclaimer before we get started, make sure everyone is aware I am working in an environment that has development going on in it currently. I will expect to see a couple of error messages. Please expect that there will be changes to what we're seeing before it is released to production. Again, a development environment that is just for testing at this point. I want to make sure that everyone is aware of the changes that we're making and the improvements and enhancements well before we release them. So with that in mind, I'll go ahead and get started with a test patient. See any changes until after we start opening screens from within our medication window. So for instance, if I click on the allergy button, then I will start to see things that look a little different. As you can see, the patient's allergy window looks quite a bit different than it did before. The allergy management workflow will be considered part of the enterprise update. The reason for that is the allergies, especially the drug allergies, will be all coded content come from First Data Bank. And with all of this new functionality and content coming from First Data Bank, we want to ensure all customers had the features, and that's why we're making it available through an enterprise function. So the screen, again, we will expect a few changes to the screen before we go to production, but as in general, we have the ability to see the entire patient's allergy list on the left. We have the ability to search for a content, an FDB content allergy. We can enter a free text allergy and continue to add those. We use over on the far right to be able to edit any of the data associated with the existing allergies. And I'll go through a lot more details on allergy management in a future Lunch and Learn, but just in general, this is how the screen currently appears. A look at the Medicaid information. Just a quick note on the eligibility tab. We have data appearing here. We can see last time the eligibility was run was October 8th. So we've got eligibility there. I think it's 72 hours. Every 72 hours it needs to be run. Once we have a return on this information, we're then able to go to our RX Fill History tab. There's a couple new buttons here, and of course some of the ones that you see today in your version. We still have the ability to select a medication and add them to the current med list. Or we can take a look at details by highlighting a med and clicking to show detail. Once show detail, this screen looks a little different now. We tried to make it a little more user-friendly and easier to read. Go ahead and close. If I come into this screen and I need an update from last time it was run, so right here up at the top, I can see it was last run yesterday, so there probably aren't any more updates, but if I need to update, I can click the Update Fill History button down here at the top, which is new. When that is clicked and if new items appear, this button will turn green. Take us back to the current tab, and the grid here is slightly different. So we have an RX status column that will help us understand which medications are incomplete, meaning they need to be finished. These are considered queued medications for our new Enterprise SendRx screen. So I'll show that to you in just a moment. We do have larger SIG columns so that we can see more of the text and dose description as well. Records are medications that were entered but not prescribed. So I will take you through that flow. Once I click Record RX, I'm now taken to the brand new Enterprise Drug Search. It is a smart type ahead search. It will allow me to type in just a few letters of a drug name and then make that help me make that selection without having to fully spell it out. Then able to make a selection. While I'm in the Record Medication Drug Search, I can still see the patient's med list, allergies, current problems, and latest height and weight vitals over on the left. If I need to for any reason, I can select a new pharmacy or make some pharmacy management updates for the patient. So I'll look at med. And then taken to the next Record Medication screen. If the patient's not fully aware of the exact date that they started the medication, if they've been on it for a long time, they might not remember, which is completely fine. I just add a month and a year, or even just a year, and then save the information there. If an intake for a brand new patient and possibly telling me of 7 medications that they're taking, I click to add another prescription, and I'm taken immediately to the drug search screen again so that I can enter another med. So this is a quick and easy Record Medication workflow. I will save that, and again, so They'll be here when you're working on partner in production, but again, this is a development environment, so I've got a little bit of an extra screen there. But after I close out, my Medicaid list is updated with the entries I just made, and then I can continue on. I'd like to record a brand new prescription on new, and I'm able to enter that drug search again. It looks mostly the same. The only difference here is that I have the patient's benefit plans listed for me here at the top and toggle between them. So for instance, select a lisinopril to prescribe. I'll ignore warnings here. And I'm taken to the script writer screen. This is the screen that allows us to see quite a bit of information about the medication. I can get some PDR or Connective RX medication data and take a look at that. I need any reference. Pulls up. It's really good information about that med. And I can print that to PDF or print if I need to. Some of them coming directly from FDB is found in the patient education link, and we can either print that PDF or in a different form over here as well. About the rest of the screen. If we look at the top left corner, we have the preferred pharmacy link. And if for any reason during the medication prescribing workflow I need to manage the patient's pharmacies, I can do so. The pharmacy that is displayed by default is the patient's favorite pharmacy. So the favorite is denoted by the star selected here. When I enter pharmacy management through the patient context, I have a patient tab to let me know I'm working patient-specific links. If I go to the SureScripts directory tab, I have a direct link to the SureScripts directory pharmacies. When I enter this tab in the patient context, the patient's zip code is automatically populated into the zip code field so that the pharmacies hopefully closest to the patient are appearing in the list for us. A cover on our features in the pharmacy management screens. We see the service levels for the pharmacy by hovering over the pill icon. Pharmacies are currently able to accept new prescriptions. They send out refills, and this one in particular is able to accept controlled substance prescriptions electronically. And this one's the same. And here only does refills. So as we go throughout 2019 and get closer to 2020, we will see quite a few more pharmacies that are able to do the things within the unified functionality that we'll get with Practice Partner version 11.2, like RX Change and RX Cancel. Until this is typically the service levels that we'll see. For directory pharmacies, if we need to change that pharmacy name to something that's a little more user-friendly or a little more understandable for the users at the practice, we can do so by clicking this edit button and creating a nickname for that pharmacy. highlight a pharmacy and need to add it to the patient's list, I can do so really easily by clicking the Add to Patient list. If I need to also add it to the clinic's list of pharmacies, I can do that by clicking this button here. So I'll just go add it to the patient list. Come over to patient, and I have 3 pharmacies linked to the patient. Okay, here. My pharmacy drop-down for this particular prescription, I now have my pharmacies, or I can go in to select another one. If it has a current problems list or items on their current problem list, we can then select or a diagnosis rather in the indications drop-down. This will automatically populate the indication to pharmacy field. It will populate the message to SureScripts. That goes scripts to the pharmacy, I should say. SureScripts has a limitation of only allowing 2 indications in each prescription message. That's why we've got the max 2. Again, this view is a little squished, so you'll see changes here once we get closer to release. We can then in a city, the prior authorization field is currently just a free text, but we get the Cover My Meds electronic authorization feature set complete in 2019. You'll see much more functionality around these fields. I'll look quickly at the left side here at the real-time benefit area. This information is to contain the Cover My Meds data that will, if there's a return from Cover My Meds on the medication. If not, we'll just see these dotted lines. So there's specific data that we can send through a test environment to have a return from Cover My Meds. So most of the medications we'll use today are just through a test environment, and we won't see any yet. I can prescription a favorite by clicking the star, or I can save, meaning I want to save all the data that I've entered here, but not send this prescription yet. I can go immediately to the Send RX screen and send the prescription on out. If I click RX, I go over to immediately be able to send this prescription out. I need to send a method. So I'll just say that I'm going to print this medication for now. I get prescription details. I can also change the number of refills. So I hover over that refill number. I'm given the very specific details that I am approving the dispense of for this prescription, 3 additional refills. So details there, that's a SureScripts certification requirement. If for any reason I need to change the number of refills, I can do so. And then I can see that this information has been changed. So 3 were prescribed, and now I've changed it to 2 before I'm going to send out. I select this medication and click send. One workflow for sending a prescription. A few medications to the patient record have been saved. Instead of being taken all the way through the workflow and sent, I can get back to those prescriptions to finish them out by clicking the Send RX button. This will lead me to a screen that will allow me to review all the medications that have been added to the patient record but not completed, or medications that require a review before they're sent out. So just to start out here, and in this screen, I can see the patient's benefit plans here on the left side of the screen. The potential interactions are something that I can click and take a look at. I can also see this medication list, current problems, and latest height and weight vitals. Of the screen, in the section with checkboxes, I'm able to see all the medications that are waiting to be sent. I have more than 4 medications that are waiting to be sent for this patient. I'll see a small scroll bar here on the far right. While over particular medication, it will be highlighted. If I click that medication, the details for that medication are automatically scrolled into view so that I can see them. Also highlighted in a slightly different color. We are working on the details for that coloring though, because it's very slight at this time, and we may want to make it a little more noticeable. So if you have any there, please let us know in our Q&A session. We SIG area here. If we have a SIG that is over 140 characters, we will be able to send that through to SureScripts. Again, a SureScripts requirement is that we have SIGs that are 140 characters or less. So we'd have the opportunity to modify the SIG before sending the prescription out. I can select all different send methods if I prefer before sending out the meds, or I can select just a few of the medications to send out. And I'm aware here from the checkboxes selected and also the counter on the button of how many medications I'm sending out if I have to move forward and send them. If for any reason I need some more information or I'm not ready to send the medications, I can click Save and Close and come back to this screen anytime. I move away from this window. I do make sure that everyone can see the Notes to Pharmacy section as well. If I need to write any notes to the pharmacy before sending out, I can do so here. Click Send. Both of medications, even with different send methods, were sent out, and now I'm left with the last medication that I was not ready to send out yet, so I'll click Save and Close. And a message if I'm ready to go ahead and print, and I'll click No because we'll skip that for now. So that is some of the basics for the information here on a couple of basic prescribing workflows. We will be showing quite a bit more on this. Will work with some different workflows like RX cancel and RX change. If we receive those RX messages from a pharmacy, we'll also be going through the refill workflow. Handling those is going to be much more easy and fast with the enterprise screens and functionality. We will also take a look at our RX work list, go through workflows by filling prescriptions through the work list. So anytime I have on a patient chart prescriptions that are incomplete, meaning they're not sent yet. They need to be finished. They'll be available through the patient's chart as well as from the RX work list. I'll be able to either way, and I'll be able to select the provider that I want to handle or do pending or queue medications for as well. So we'll go through that in another luncheon. I do want to show one more patient before we over some questions, just really quick. Some cool that we're getting from let's see here. I'll go back and see. So I guess it's a good time to open it up for questions. Allison, are you able to see those questions and feed me a few of those?
Actually, we've been answering them as we've been going along. So right now, everything looks like it's been addressed. There was a number of questions around when this would be available. So early 2019 is what we're looking at. Let's give folks another two to questions. I'll check chat real quick. And it looks like we are all set for now. So if you have questions, though, that do come up, you can always use the info@emds.com email address to get those over to us, and we'll make sure we're routed to the right person to get responses to your questions. Allergy print with a med sheet.
I have to review that med sheet with Susie and make sure that I'm thinking of the appropriate printout, but that's definitely something that we can take a look at. Yes.
Excellent.
Printings with the med sheet, is that right?
Yeah. And another question about printing. Would print out hard copies
of the med list or of a prescription? Either way, I'll put it simple.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
A follow-up to the allergy. So currently, when you print the med sheet, the allergies do not print. So that would be nice to have if it is possible.
Yeah, great suggestion.
Okay. Another question here. Can the allergies that are the severe reaction be listed first?
A great suggestion. The current functionality is that they are listed in the order they were entered, but what we have also is that we're working on making sure that they're shown in red anywhere they're displaying and they're severe. Changing the order, though, is something that I'll need to talk to our developers about, and let me see what that would take. That's a great suggestion.
Excellent. Ian. All looks like that's all we have for now. So thank you, Alana. Thank you, Susie, for another great Lunch and Learn presentation. Let me just see if I can pull up. I don't think we saw the okay. I just want to make sure that people are seeing these upcoming Lunch and Learn sessions. on October 24th and November 7th. So we're going to continue the prescribing webinar series. So we're going to see more and more detail as we go through this through the end of the year. So make sure that you tune in for those. We'll be getting some invites out to folks shortly for these upcoming sessions. So at this time, we are all set. So thank you, everybody, for joining us and taking time out of your day. We're going to give you about 4 minutes back in the schedule, and that concludes our webinar. Thank you.